We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome this afternoon to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Advisory Committee on the Motor Vehicle Stop Data. Abigail, if you wouldn't mind taking roll.
Yes, sir. Chief Nathan Anderson,
Present.
Captain Melissa Cummins,
Present.
Sheriff William Jack Kurt,
Here.
Chief Deputy Salvador Rodriguez, Dr. Eric Fritsch,
Here.
Crime Analyst Julia Chadwell, present. Sergeant Eli Rivera,
Present.
Captain Adam Hooten,
Here.
Captain James Taylor,
Here.
Chief Stephen Brush.
Here.
Assistant Chief Van Slusser.
Here.
Apologies for any mispronunciations. We have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. So we'll start off this meeting with an introduction of myself, and then after I do that, I would love to go around the room and let everybody introduce yourselves. First of all, my name is Nathan Anderson. I'm the Chief of Police in Rockport. It's been a great city that I've been at for about 5 years now. We'll just talk about this Motor Vehicle Stop Data Committee. I'm very excited to be a part of this. I think it's something that's important. If you've ever been a part of collecting this data for the state, for TCOL, it's not always an easy task. Some of the definitions are not clear. Some of the way that different departments collect data is not the same. And I think one of our goals for this committee is to hopefully ease that and come up with a more uniform way to collect this data. And so I'm looking forward to that. This is a very meaningful committee, and I'm glad that all of you volunteered to be a part of it. And I think that we have a lot to look forward to. Assistant Presiding Officer is Melissa Cummins, and if you have any words to say, I'd be happy to hear that.
I've been with Houston Police Department about 17 years and have submitted traffic stop stats on behalf of the department for about 10 of those. So I have quite a bit of experience in both the collection but the analysis of the data. So really looking forward to digging in, hearing everyone else's opinions about the process and talking about governance over data collection.
Very good. So I'd love to go around the room. Chief, if you would like to start.
Thanks. I'm Steve Brush. I'm with the Canyon Police Department. I've been at the Canyon Police Department about 6 years. I was appointed chief in 2020. Before that, I was the chief in Tulia for 4 years. I worked 26 years at Amarillo Police Department. I really didn't start doing the traffic stop data until I got into the chief role. At Amarillo, they had people that did that, and I don't even know who those people were. So I'm like y'all, I'm pretty interested in doing this and kind of cleaning up some of the stuff. I think we get a lot of random numbers because guys are just checking stuff on a ticket that they don't really know. So I'm excited to do this. Thanks for having me.
Sergeant.
Yes, my name is Sergeant Eli Rivera. I'm with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, assigned to the Training Academy. I'm over the Leadership Development Unit. And it's just an honor just to be here, sitting in this position to help solidify and simplify this data that we collect. It is mandatory and it is necessary to see what demographics that we are stopping and interacting with. So it's just a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to doing some work to it.
Captain.
Adam Hooten. I've been with the Hearst Police Department for 16 years now, actually 16 years yesterday. I've been a part of the analysis of our motor vehicle stop data since I promoted to captain, which is about 4 or 5 years ago. So I've kind of gotten hands-on with the data a lot more, how we collect it. We've debated how we collect it. Are we collecting the right data? All these things. So I'm excited to be a part of this committee and work on this. My current role over the administrative services is kind of what I do, is analyze data, everything like that. So excited.
I'm Captain James Taylor with the Texas Department of Public Safety. I've been with the agency for 16 years and been served all over the state in various different roles. I've been in my current role for a few months, but served as the lieutenant under this position for the last 5 years. So my current position is over our Highway Safety Operations Center, which collects, analyzes, evaluates, and disseminates data relating to highway and traffic safety. So we've been at the forefront and very integral in the Highway Patrol's data collection methods and processes. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what kind of improvements and insight that you all have as well on this very important subject for data. It informs a lot of decisions, informs how we do things. So thank you.
I'm glad to see somebody from Texas Department of Public Safety here on this commission. I think it'll be very, you'll be very influential to this committee, so.
I'm glad to be here.
Chief?
And my name is Van Slusser, Assistant Chief of Police at University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Been there about 16 years, currently over administrative support operations. So I do oversee the collection of our data. And as the UT System Police, we are a state agency. So what we collect locally gets pooled with all of the other components and then submitted to the state. So I do bring that state perspective to the conversation of all that data from the Valley to UT Police Houston and out in El Paso and every other component all coming together and being submitted in one report.
Julia Chadwell, I'm the crime analyst for the Cedar Park Police Department. I've been there for 11 years. Before that, I worked with DPS. I utilize this data on a monthly and annual basis for several different reports for the police department and our city. We utilize it for operations as well as resource allocation.
Very good. Sheriff?
My name's Jack Hurt. I'm the elected sheriff in Archer County, Texas. My 23rd year. Most of it's all been, even though I'm an administrator now, I mean, I made a traffic stop yesterday on the way down here before I left the county. So I've been making traffic stops since the beginning. So that's been my role. I'm in my middle of my second term. I just want to make sure that I like to be on, or try to be part of the conversation to make sure that small agencies like mine don't get overlooked when we're trying to pass policies, because what's good for Harris County isn't always good for Archer County. So that's kind of my deal, is just to make sure that everybody's represented in all different aspects.
Very good.
I'm Eric Fritsch. I'm at the University of North Texas. I've been a professor of criminal justice there for 29 years. I've been working with agencies on reporting racial profiling data since 2004. Worked on a project with Senator Royce West, Dallas PD, and some of the southern Dallas County police departments, looking at better ways to collect and report data. And I kind of basically see myself as a researcher. So when you talk about definitions and stuff, that's all about research, operationalizing concepts, so you get consistency and reliability in data collection. So happy to participate and help any way I can.
We also have several members of the TCOL staff that are present that will be supporting us along our way. I'm assuming during each one of the meetings and stuff. Everybody here. So, if y'all wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, please.
Assistant General Counsel Mark Duncan. Been here about 2 years. We're gonna assist in all the legal questions and jurisdictional issues you guys might have.
Also Assistant General Counsel Dan Walker, been here about 1.5 years. My previous life before being a general counsel role, I was a criminal prosecutor, so down in Bexar County, so kind of seen perspectives on the impact of things when they reach the courtroom. So I'm really interested to see what y'all discuss and bring forth out of this committee.
I'm Colin Grissom. I'm a deputy chief over licensing and education. All of the data collected comes to one of the sections that I lead called Special Services. Unfortunately, the captain over that is out on extended medical leave. But I'll be the primary liaison. Dan will be our primary legal person. He'll keep us in line with
open meetings and all of the things that have to go with this. The other hat that I wear under the education services side, we presume some of the work product out of this committee will inform our curriculum, how we train officers. And if we want to standardize this across the state, we probably need to train it down to where the boots, are on the pavement actually doing the job. So as this committee arrives at definitions and those types of things, we can build it into our curriculum stream so that individual peace officers get it early and often in their career, hoping to normalize the way we're all collecting data.
I'm Gretchen Grigsby. I'm the Director of Government and External Relations here. You've all gotten emails from me over the last couple of months, so I really want to thank you all for your time, for being here, for your dedication. This is important work. In my role as our legislative director, this is a matter of interest to the legislature, of course. There is legislation filed almost every session that relates to the data that we're talking about here. And so I want for all of you to understand how important this is and how much we appreciate you putting the attention to it, because there is, as the chief said, there is a fair amount of inconsistency and different interpretations in how this data is collected, how it's interpreted. And so we want to provide some consistency so that stakeholders who are interested in looking at the data, including the legislature, but also media, the public, research organizations, so that all of them have useful data that they can look at. That's really, I think, the core of the mission before you all. So again, thank you. Sheriff, you mentioned that you want to make sure small agencies are represented. If you look around, we are very intentional with the way we put these committees together. We want large and small, we want urban and rural and different geographic representations of the state. So really do appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to be here.
Hi, my name's Abigail Sunley. I'm one of the legal assistants in the legal division. I've been here for about a little over 2 years and really intrigued to see what this committee does. We don't do, at least I don't deal with too much of the motor stop vehicle data, so I'm really intrigued to see what this has to offer.
Thanks, Abigail. And I'm Greg Stevens. I'm the executive director with TCOL. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes on three main topics, and I want to start with why we're doing this, why an advisory committee, and like every one of these folks have said so far, I really appreciate the fact that y'all applied to be a part of this. I will say to you, we had a lot of applications, and we meticulously went through that list and arrived at you all. It was an in-house decision. We shopped around that list with the governor's office. We looked at it with a number of different people and arrived at this set. And just like Gretchen had pointed out, Sheriff and everybody, we wanted someone, especially from DPS, right? We wanted people from the Rio Grande Valley. We wanted people from the Panhandle, from West Texas, from the Hill Country area, right? To have that diversity of geographics, of agency size, it is vastly different when you've got 5,500 or more troopers, whatever that number is right now, down to Canyon, Texas, Rockport, and a sheriff's office. We want constables, we want a public member. We bring together an advisory committee because we know that what we do at TCOL impacts law enforcement in Texas, the practitioners, the ones that are doing the job, the citizens it impacts. And it's far more meaningful to have decisions, to have the things that we take to the legislature when we change rules, whatever comes out of this. We don't want to do that as bureaucrats in Austin, sitting in an office on the second floor of a nondescript building without a name on it that we hand out edicts across the state that impacts what you're doing across the state, right? So in my so far brief time at TCOL, what I walked into an environment where the agency uses the advisory committee process, and I love it. I love the way that works, so that we bring folks like you in from across the state, from different agencies, small, big types of agencies, so that we can come up with best practices. It meets TCOL's mission, which I always like to start with. It's concise, it's succinct, is to ensure that Texans are served by highly trained and ethical law enforcement personnel. That's it, straightforward, simple. We can't do that from a second floor office in Austin, Texas. We need your input, and I deeply appreciate you all being willing to give up your time, your efforts. You all have busy lives in your jurisdictions across the state. So there's that. That's why we use the advisory committee process. And so in this matter particularly, there's a lot of reasons, reasons that this committee, because we went to the commissioners, the 9 commissioners appointed by the government and asked, hey, we would like to set up an advisory committee to look at motor vehicle stop data and how we're collecting that, how it's reported and all of that. And so why would we do that? There's a lot of reasons. I'm gonna give you kind of 2 of the bigger ones. Gretchen pointed it out that almost every session, there is new legislation proffered up with respect to this. We are quite often a resource witness. The legislators ask TCOL our thoughts for our expert input, for our resource input. We want to be able to best inform based upon not just what we who have been removed from the practitioner standpoint for a number of years, right? We want to be able to inform the legislature based on what we get from you all who are actually doing the work. And so what you bring us, we want to be able to take that back to the legislature during the next session to make sure that good legislation is passed, to make sure that they make decisions when they vote on legislation that is well informed from y'all's perspective. That's a big thing we hope to get out of this process. But also, as Cullen had pointed out, the training that we do, changes that need to be made to create good consistency, and that's what Chief Anderson had pointed out and several other people have said. And I'm gonna give you 2 quick examples. Again, what I've noticed during my time is the definition of a motor vehicle stop is vague. And so I think it probably needs to be improved. That's up to you guys to work on that and to come up with that. It essentially says a motor vehicle stop is an occasion when an officer stops a motor vehicle because of an alleged violation of a law or ordinance, right? And so that can be pretty wide open. And one of the things that I've seen across the state from agencies to agencies, some agencies will look at, it's pretty straightforward. If you have someone speeding and you pull it over, that's gotta be counted. That is a motor vehicle stop. There's these occasions though, a domestic disturbance is called in and one half of it, the male half has left in a blue Dodge pickup. And as an officer is going towards the call, they see a blue Dodge pickup and pull it over. Some agencies look at that and say, well, I don't know if I count that or not. I don't have a specific allegation. I just know it's a disturbance. I don't know what crime may or may not have been committed. So some agencies go, well, no, it's a motor vehicle stop, I'm gonna count that. And if they search it and they find a stolen gun in the car, or they find whatever, and they may make an arrest and they may not make an arrest. But all of the data collected from that, some agencies are counting it and some are not. That's wide inconsistency. That's an example. The shoplifting suspect that leaves the Walmart in a white Trailblazer, whatever it is, right? To count that, most agencies are counting that on electronic ticket writers. But if you don't write that car a ticket, it often goes uncounted. So those are some of the big issues that are out there, right? The second thing that I wanna bring up that is more of an in-house TCOL problem, but we're looking for you to help us solve this, is you all know that whenever you pull over a car and search the car and you find 2 types of contraband, you find firearms and drugs, the reporting currently lets you only count 1. And DPS may consider, well, we think the drugs are more important. But you as the sheriff, you've said, no, I care more about the guns. That's a bigger statistic for me. I don't know which is right, and there's nothing in the current process that really dictates that, but that's inconsistent. I think everyone would agree. There's just a couple of things that we looked at and we said, so again, if we stand up an advisory committee that gives us suggestions on improving our in-house processes for the reporting, right? And then helps us better inform the legislature when they ask for us as we go and testify as a resource witness, we can provide information from the field. And then the education piece that Cullen talked about. I offer that if you pull a random peace officer off the street, they're not able to tell you that the current statute is in 2 parts. There is an onus on the individual peace officer that when they make a motor vehicle stop, they have a statutory requirement to report it to the agency and all of this particular data. That's why they just go quick. They're just clicking buttons, man. They're just clicking buttons. And they don't understand it's a statutory requirement that they accurately report particular data. And then the second part of that statute is that the agency must compile and analyze it and make that report to their governing body and to TCO. It's a two-part statute, and the average peace officer, I think, well, that's not my problem. I just make a stop and fill out this, and then I'm done. But it is a statutory requirement, and so more education needs to be there, I think. But again, I don't wanna be that bureaucrat sitting in a second floor office making rules. So we asked the commissioners to stand up to let us stand up an advisory committee to preemptively solve some of these problems, answer some of these questions. And that's what you're here for. That's my long and short of it, wasn't very much short of it, but there is some of your charge. That was the reasoning behind us standing up this committee. And then so again, and finally, I truly appreciate your interest, your willingness to give your time and effort to this. You have all of our support to make sure you're successful. You have, I would tell you that you've got two of our very best attorneys, but we don't have any that aren't our best. We have a great legal team that does amazing work. They're at your behest. You have Abigail here. Cullen has been doing this part of what TCO does for a number of years. So you have our best of the best, whatever we can do to help you out and to support you. Literally about 8 minutes into this, I'm gonna get up and walk out because I will do nothing except distract from what you are gonna do in your good work. So don't take offense when I leave, but my part is done here to set you off on the course to help us do the mission of TCO, which is to ensure that Texans are served by highly trained and ethical law enforcement personnel. So thank you again. It's all yours.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't wanna thank each and every one of y'all's agencies and institutions as well for allowing you all to be here. Without their cooperation, we wouldn't be able to make this happen with you guys as well, so. So yeah, with that, so we'll go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of it. So agenda item number 2 is to discuss and take action on advisory committee procedural and preliminary matters if necessary. I think that is necessary myself. And I'll go ahead and start it off. I think what we're looking at there is are we gonna allow Zoom calls? Are we gonna have all the meetings here at this building? Do we wanna travel to different agencies to have our meetings moving forward? Just some questions that need to be answers that we need to come up with, and I'll open that up to the committee.
I think it's important to have it here. TCO has all of the technology here. I think trying to do it somewhere else would cause a logistical nightmare for them. I'm not against the Zoom part. The Zoom part's kinda like online training, it ain't the same. There's nothing like sitting in front of somebody and looking them in the eyes and talking.
I agree with you 100%. That I opened it up, but I do feel like this would be the best place to do it, and I like the terminology as you're strongly encouraged to be here in person. We had one member that had a family emergency this morning that couldn't make it. But if it's, hey, I just don't feel like traveling across the state, I think that you need to be here in person for those type of meetings. I think that we get a lot more accomplished when you're sitting here and we are face to face.
I agree completely. Getting it done face to face.
It's certainly easier from a staff perspective. Just as kind of an intro, and I know Dan will keep me in line. You know, these are all public meetings or open meetings, and we broadcast or have the ability to broadcast. It is easier for us if a member or multiple members have to dial in. We're pre-wired for that. If we take the meeting on the road, the meeting is wherever the whoever is presiding is. And as public meetings, we have to publish ahead of time. meeting times and places. And so there will be timelines that were given for agendas and those kind of things that have to be pre-published. So once that's published, then the flexibility, it would take emergencies or some other things to move the meeting once published. So it just purely from the selfish staff perspective, this is the easiest place for us to make it happen. But we will defer. We have had committees that have moved around the state, hopefully to get different public input is generally the reasoning behind that, moving meetings. But we're open to either, but it's certainly easier on us to do it here.
Any other comments? Are we looking for a motion to make this a committee rule or a suggestion or?
I think it needs to be a motion to rule. You could just decide for when you're planning logistically the next meeting, say what the location's gonna be, and then that's what will be on the agenda, and that's what will be published to the register, so.
We have an agenda item for that, so. Yeah, if there's no other opinions or thoughts on that, we'll move forward. Agenda item number 3 is discuss and take action on matters related to motor vehicle stop data. So that's very open, as you see. And we can discuss many different things that we've already talked about earlier this morning, and one of those things is definitions. I know that they were kind enough to give us the Code of Criminal Procedure, the law enforcement interaction with public general provisions. There's several definitions within here that we probably are going to be looking at and possibly making changes on. So if we want to start discussion with that, I'm open to that discussion.
I guess I'll start things off. You know, the executive director, he mentioned the with contraband seizures being limited to one type of contraband per search and per traffic stop really. Notice that with the entry portal, it requires an equal sum for everything. It's very limiting in that. And I think that may be just some sort of, is that a platform limitation that it doesn't require, and then it requires an even count of if you have 20 searches, you must have exactly 20 pieces of evidence or 20 different categories of evidence recovered. To me, that's a programmatic thing. I would suggest that it allow the total number or the total types of evidence recovered during different stops. And if that's not the case, then if they can't do that, so I can't say a gun and drugs were seized in this traffic stop. If it is determined that there's some sort of platform limitation with that, then provide a separate category that says multiple. That would be the worst case scenario for me. That doesn't tell me a whole lot. It's like other, right? Other's wonderful because it doesn't fill in the blanks. It could be anything. And I know officers will be tempted to go with that other that's, if it's not black and white, well, this paraphernalia, it's not really drugs, you know, it's in kind of drugs, drug adjacent. So I'm gonna list it as other. So it's not very clear for them. So that's my suggestion for that particular issue, is to allow within the reporting portal to enter or to remove this restriction, at least if you indicate that you have 20 pieces of 20 searches where evidence was recovered, then you have to have a minimum of 20 different evidence types, but not set that as both the minimum and the maximum. Does that make sense?
And really, Captain, that's how the system got there. It is a system program.
Yeah.
So we have the capacity to open that up. I mean, if you think about it, in a single traffic stop, you have a stop, do you have a search, yes or no? If you had a search, did you find contraband, yes or no? If you answer yes, we can open it to where you can select multiples. I found drugs, guns, and a dead body. So that's doable. What we were finding, and it wasn't as much we as it was the researchers trying to use the data, is you would have a traffic stop, yes, there was a search, yes, there was contraband, and your bingo on what type. And so it was trying to align, if you report yes here, then you have to put something over here. And so part of that is systemic, it's programming inside the system. So I think we can get there, we're hoping you will coalesce around what that looks like. And then I'm confident our IT team can program the back end to capture the data. What we were trying to set up, and those of you who've done IT design, you have to forgive me because I'm not that into the spectrum. They're trying to set it up to where it's easy to do the right thing, and the data align. So if you don't put something in certain boxes after you've answered this series of questions, then it sees that as corruption and won't let you go on. So you're gonna have to remedy that. And so this is Jessica, I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Jessica Capraro, I'm the Chief Information Officer for TCOL, and we can definitely program those questions to be, to open up additional options conditionally based on selections. We can also program in validations or loosen up validations. But some of the things that I would like to see this committee consider are the different scenarios that can be encountered during the traffic stops. For example, the searching and the finding contraband. Sometimes the numbers don't match up because there's multiple passengers in the vehicle, and while it was one stop, there were maybe 4 different types of contraband found on multiple passengers. So putting validations around the questions as they are today is a little bit, it's limiting on one end or the other. And so we've removed a lot of the validations because of reported issues with submitting numbers. So that's something that, the more validations we can include without restricting the data input or keeping the integrity of the data, then the better, because then we'll end up with more usable data for reporting.
It's validation.
What's that?
Just using validation, is that a label
Yeah.
on the?
Validations. So if y'all can think through what those validations should look like, that would be really helpful. Because they are contingent on like the real life scenarios within the traffic stops.
And something even adjacent to that is something as simple as an arrest. Most of the time, and going to what the executive director spoke to, one of the other scenarios is I stop a car because the person is speeding. That's normally a transaction with the driver. But I find out the passenger is wanted on a warrant. And I arrest the passenger, which is completely unrelated, if you think about it, to the probable cause I had to stop the car and all of that. There are agencies who are not counting that as an arrest from the traffic stop because it's not the driver. And so adding, you can see all the rabbit trails you can go down where people vary from on different reporting. And the closer we can get to, and I love Jessica's request for scenarios. If you think about building training curriculum, we want to say, okay, here's the scenario. This is what happens. How are you going to report this stop? And so the more we can think through some of those possibilities, we can build it into the training, we can put my T-Cole training online. Our commissioners can mandate that peace officers take it in a specific training unit. But it's all of those variables. I'm sure Dr. Fritz is a researcher. You probably run into some things that give you brain damage when you're collecting data. Some of the things we commonly run into when people are reporting to us is years ago, a lot of the ticket writer systems left other as a means to collect race and ethnicity. The law doesn't allow for other. The law says the officer must choose one of these categories, and there's no penalty if they're wrong. Okay, it's you have to, well, I don't know what they are, or they're multi, or they're whatever. Well, the statute says you're gonna put them in one of these categories. And it's okay if you're just guessing, based on your best effort. Well, that was some of the, before I got promoted, one of my jobs was collecting this, calling people and saying, hey, why haven't you reported? Well, I have 6,000 traffic stops and 500 of them are other as race. Where do I put those? I can't tell you where to put those, and so part of what we want to do with your work product is get that out to the companies that support these ticket writers and data collection systems, to where they don't allow some of the, I think we've gotten that one fixed. I think we finally got everybody to pull the other out of their systems. They were just being nice, trying to do with the customer, something simple for the customer, but it ultimately ended up in potentially corrupt data.
Speaking of the ticket writers, one of the reasons that you have a relatively short time frame to work with, we've asked you to have your work done so that we can present it to our commissioners at their June meeting, to allow that 6-month period for the ticket writing systems to be reprogrammed, to start collecting January 1st of 2027 for reporting starting January 1st, 2028. So that's kind of the time frame that we're working with here, just since it hadn't been said aloud.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're always, anytime we touch these systems, we're doing it a year in advance if we can. Because and that's one of the issues with when the legislature, moves our cheese by amending the law. We have to make sure that they understand that it'll be future reporting that gets there, not current data, because we have to have stability at some level. Thank you, Chris.
And one of my thoughts is they're collecting somewhere around 15, 16 variables on a traffic stop. I've heard some things, definition of what counts as a stop, contraband discoveries, searches, arrests. Is there a way to put the variables into two buckets, one where there is no issues? So, reason for the stop. Is that clear that there's 4 categories and it's either a violation of the law or whatever the 4 categories are, and we can kind of leave that to the side? And then these are the 6 variables that people are having problems with, of, contraband during searches, that maybe there's multiple types of arrests that occur on a single stop, that then how do you count that? And I'm assuming some are clear, race, ethnicity, now that we've got out of other, it's gotta be one of them, so it's on the officer to pick one. And reason for the stop, location of the stop, I'm assuming there's a handful of them that are just like, these are good, and then these are the ones that are problematic that we gotta come up with solutions to.
I would like to suggest if we looked at every category, even the ones that you think are good, but like the stop occurs on a US highway or a local road or whatever the
category.
I didn't bring a ticket to
I didn't
look at, but I think like in Canyon, Texas, we have 4th Avenue but it's also State Highway 217. And then we have 23rd Street, which is also US 87. I think we need to define what's even though that should be simple, I feel like it's not, because I don't think there's enough definition to every category for the guy on the ground, the boots on the ground, to say this is the overriding, this is what I have to pick, because it's a US highway, or it's an interstate, so it gets picked first, and then a US highway, and then a state highway, and then a local road, or however that goes. And I feel like you had mentioned training. I feel like there's not enough. I think when we first started collecting this data, a lot of it was like, this is a common sense answer, and then once we started, it wasn't a common sense answer.
It's funny that you said it the way you said it on the location. Cause at first when he was talking, I thought, yeah, that's a no brainer. But then last week, or the week before last, we had an argument in my office, cause I dispatched for 2 counties. We call Highway 82 that goes through the north end of our county. Well, Baylor County, who we also dispatch for, calls it US 277. So I've got dispatchers that's like, what road are they on? Are they on 82 or 277? Well, it's the same road. But when you look at the numbers, there's 2 totally different numbers. And it goes even farther, is they call it, West 277, and we call it East 277. But we're talking about the exact same road, but it's because we're 2 separate counties. And I mean, that's just 2 little bitty counties, where we don't have that many people patrolling, like what you said, nobody uses the same. And so even location can get murky.
Well, I think we lose some data too, kind of different, but the same, like who defines a verbal warning, and where do you get the data to put in if you do a verbal warning? But verbal warnings can't necessarily be eliminated, because there's always gonna be that case where your officer stops somebody and then something hot goes out over the radio and they throw their driver's license back at the driver and they're like, okay, gotta go see it, slow down or whatever. So we don't have that data, and then they report a verbal warning and I got nothing. By the time I look at the racial profiling stuff, I have nothing. I don't know what to do with a verbal warning. So I think we have to define that, and then we have to have that has to stand on its own. I don't think we're gonna have a race and a sex and the other things to go in there. Obviously, there's not gonna be a search or anything like that, but.
I wondered the same thing. We require written warnings. We don't do verbal warnings no more, except for the incident that you just gave of a verbal warning. Yesterday, I stopped a black SUV because I was looking for a black minivan. I stopped it. It was a little old lady. It was the wrong person. Sorry, wrong person. And I let her go. And if I'm doing it, my guys are doing the same thing. But I was looking for an armed suspect and she wasn't it. And so there was there's no documentation of that. I mean, I know that, but I'll forget that next week. And so that number will never get reported.
Well, and a lot of times what happens is you, like Steven said, you have a vehicle that leaves Walmart as a theft suspect, or you have somebody leave a domestic violence call and you make a stop on them and say you arrest them or you don't arrest them. Well, that motor vehicle stop isn't getting reported, probably more times than not, I would imagine. And the way that the law is written now, that should be reported. And it's not getting reported. And so do we want to make a recommendation to the commission on what is a motor vehicle stop? What's the definition of that? Or do we want to clarify that needs to be reported? And so I think that's an important mission that we have as well, so.
I think to have accurate numbers, I think we got, a motor vehicle stop's a motor vehicle stop. The definition or the scenario he gave, still a motor vehicle stop. You know, the one yesterday was a motor vehicle stop by definition. And to have accurate numbers, I think we have to be a little stricter on it. I mean, I think that it has to be more robust, otherwise there's always gonna be the what ifs, and I mean, most patrol officers are gonna take the least of, or the most least restrictive way to get through the stop and get to the next one. I think you have to make it all documented.
So if you stop a vehicle, regardless of reason, it gets counted, period.
I think you have to. I think if you don't, I think then you just open the door for thousands of stops to just not be counted.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's good, I just think from a usable research for people on the outside, they should not be counted. And I know it's the law and you gotta count, but they shouldn't be counted because you can't racially profile in that regards. It should be only on like self-initiated traffic stops, looking at the definition of racial profiling. Because if you're stopping somebody because a black SUV was involved in something, you're stopping it because of reasonable suspicion, because they're involved in some kind of criminal activity perhaps. From what racial profiling is and how it should be analyzed from a research standpoint, I would say that stuff needs to be excluded. I get it, it's required by the law.
So, and I'll tell you one thing that I hope comes out of this committee is recommendations where you see needed to the legislature on clarifications that can be made in the law next session. So that is a perfect example. If you all, from a practitioner standpoint, a research standpoint, see that as it should be a motor vehicle stop made based on a violation of the transportation code or something, or other, penal code, something like that, that makes sense.
So I think to your point, if we do a full session where we're going through definitions and talking about where we may have discrepancies in understanding, that'll highlight those. And then we talked about sort of the application of those definitions. There's probably gonna be some different scenarios. Houston doesn't issue verbal or written warnings. All of our non-citations are verbal. So there are gonna be a lot of differences, I think, in agency size there that would allow us to kind of tease out those possible recommendations that would fit across the board, I think.
It's interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, when the Sandra Bland Act took effect, DPS made a change where it was, there are no verbal warnings, it's all written warnings, right?
We document everything. And there are situations where expediency says that you need to let somebody go, but that doesn't preclude an officer from reporting that information at a later time when it's safe to do so. So that's the method that we took, where we have 100% accountability on all traffic stops. And I agree, we should at least glance at all at the definitions and different variables that we're reporting on. And I'd like to ask the question when we get to those, what is the purpose, like the educational, the policy making, or the public interest for this particular set of data, and what is the question we're trying to answer? A good example of that is the location information. We've got highway, state highway, FM road, all those sorts of things. Well, what is the real question we're trying to answer? There is, what kind of area are we stopping these cars? Or we're stopping them in residential areas? Are we stopping them outside of rural areas? What is the neighborhood that we're doing patrol enforcement? And exactly to the sheriff's point and the chief's point there is the classification of the roadway doesn't necessarily tell us where that traffic stop took place. It could be on a federal interstate highway, but it could be on a business interstate spur that's going through the middle of a business district of town where all the bars are, or something like that. So I think looking at what is the purpose of collecting the data in the first place for research, and then figuring out, is there a way to simplify that even further and say, is this a rural traffic stop? Is this a business district traffic stop, a commercial or residential district type thing? But that's what I'd like to see.
A lot of that could probably be stolen from, the CR3s that requires a certain, if you have a dual named road, you should be using the highest state highway or interstate or whatever it is that you're on for that particular road.
Yeah, the chief went through it in order.
It was close.
Interstate, US highway.
Yeah.
I'd also like us to look at the definition of bodily injury. And I think it's pretty broadly defined in relation to how we're documenting injury for like FBI use of force or any other set injury definition. So I'd be interested to hear some discussion around that. Does a complaint of forced handcuffing then raise to a verbal, acknowledgement of bodily injury? And with that definition, then how is it interpreted in terms of research, right? I think when I'm answering questions about our data, very often there's a misconception about what definition is being used, so therefore what that data means.
Cause I hear sometimes that there's not a category for use of force, no bodily injury. That kind of gets left out. There's not one of those. It's either no use of force or use of force with bodily injury, but then people tell me there's instances where there's use of force, but there's no bodily injury that occurs to the person. Where does it go?
Yeah, it's a single,
Where it
it's a
goes into
single
the-
variable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with those definitions of variables, we'll then be able to determine if there's any validation checks that would apply across those definitions in terms of the programming, to Jessica's point.
So I think it's important to read into the record what our scope of responsibility is. And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read this out loud. The 88th Texas Legislature granted the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement under Texas Occupation Code 1701.165 the authority to establish advisory committees to make recommendations to the commission on programs, rules, and policies administered by the commission. So programs, rules, and policies is what our scope is, and if we read on through the memo, the goal of this committee is to recommend improvements for the collection and reporting of motor vehicle stop data, also known as racial profiling reports, with the intent of establishing better quality data standards to produce more usable data for analysis. The most important areas of focus are to create definitions related to the data being collected, the best practices to ensure consistency in interpretation and reporting among law enforcement agencies. You have to excuse me, I've been under the weather, I'm still medicated, but I'm gonna make it, I promise. So programs, the way I read this, and correct me if I'm wrong, programs is the data being collected. The rules would be the best practices to ensure consistency of interpretation. And the policies would be reporting among law enforcement agencies. Would that be accurate, the way the memo is written? And so Melissa and I and TCOL staff did have a pre-meeting before we had this meeting back in December, a while ago. And so one of the ideas that we came up with is coming up with subcommittees within the committee that we have here. And so what I would like to do, and if we can get a motion on it, or a motion in a second, is come up with subcommittees. And I'd like to have at least 3 different subcommittees, one for the programs, one for the rules, and one for the policies. That subcommittee can come back with during our next meeting, and we'll discuss when that's gonna be during the next agenda item. But are there any thoughts on that?
I guess the first question is, do you guys see value in having the subcommittees to have maybe email exchange with smaller groups to bring questions back to the larger, or would you prefer to have the full discussion here at the committee table?
I think if you don't have the subcommittees, it's gonna be really long work sessions for the whole group. I feel like it would be the quickest and most efficient way to get everything done.
And Colin, you guys would be available for the subcommittee meetings depending on your schedules.
One of the things that we kind of need to watch when we talk about subdividing an open meetings board like this committee is the notion of quorums. So if too many of you meet doing the business of the advisory committee, that we can run afoul of the rules. So keeping subcommittees sized correctly, so we avoid that. And then also the primary way we need you to interact is if a subcommittee has a work product, it should probably come to us and then we can disseminate it. Is that better? As opposed to everybody in here being on an email pool and starting to dump and do a lot of cross communication. Because again, we're under open meetings rules and it's transparent. It's all based on transparency with state organizations. So we've got to be cognizant of that. One thing I think I kind of want to clarify, when the letter's talking about rules, they're really talking about TCOL has rule-making authority. All of you who are licensees operate under the TCOL rules. So if we were going to, or if you were going to recommend a rule change, that's kind of what it's talking about there. Another way you might want to look at eating the elephant one bite at a time is to say, okay, we have a subcommittee looking at the statutory definitions, which is your penal code definition of bodily injury, or what constitutes traffic stop as written in Code of Criminal Procedure. And then if you look at the section where it gives you the list, it's actually 2B/53 B6 is where it starts to go into those things that we are obligated to collect. And so I think if you kind of consider dicing it up like that, so maybe I have 3 or 4 people that are really interested in defining when a traffic stop has occurred for the purposes of this. Then you have some people that tackle location, or search, or all of these things, some of which we think are simple. Whether they knew race or ethnicity prior to the stop is one of the questions. So I think parsing it that way is something to consider, as opposed to kind of the way Nathan, you had said it with the rules. Rulemaking is something we take to the commissioners. We propose a change in the TCOL rules. And once the rule changes, then agencies are obligated to operate under that new rule. One of the things Gretchen's talked about as part of the output, and sometimes it is it can be very obvious. Sometimes it's just informational, as Gretchen and her team do a lot of interaction downtown. And so they are commonly tasked with gathering information. It may not result in a bill, for instance. They may not file a new bill based on what we're bringing to them, but it may inform some of her team's discussions with individuals who are looking at other things. So I don't know that we have to have a subcommittee that says, here's where we want to change the law. I think some of those may be logical outcomes from the broader discussion that as the committee winds down, we say, here's what we would like you to take back to the legislature that concerns us. Obviously, I want to remind people, we can't change what's in the Code of Criminal Procedure. We can't say, we don't want to collect this anymore because we're statutorily obligated. If we go to redefine things, we could probably add definition, but we can't exclude things in a definition that the legislature's given us. Now, I think that the motor vehicle traffic stop is a prime example of a very broad, open definition. I think the committee can kind of clamp down with an interpretation of that we can train. It may inform going to, for legislative change or refinement of the definition and statute. But I think if we kind of dice the work that way, maybe with the subcommittees, if somebody's really passionate about one or more of the topics, that may be a way to divide the labor.
So I'd be willing to take a motion on someone who would like to create a subcommittee and over what kind of data to collect.
I would like to participate on that subcommittee.
Okay. Is there anything in particular that you are passionate about?
When looking at what we're collecting right now, we look at the example of we're only collecting one type of contraband. That's leaving major gaps in what we're recovering. What we're recovering in conjunction with each other, how those things relate to crime in general across the board. So I think when we look at in the CCP here, it outlines right now what data we're collecting. So what are we collecting now, how are we collecting it, and what gaps do we have in that, and how can
So I understand it as you're making a motion to create a subcommittee on the data collection of contraband.
that'll be good, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Very good. So now,
Nathan?
yes.
just clarity, what's that subcommittee going to investigate?
They're going to investigate the data collection of contraband and what is surrounded around what they collect for that.
Before we go on, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear how big is a subcommittee?
So
What did where did we land on the quorum thing?
So that's where I'm going to next right now
Okay,
is
sorry.
so my thoughts are 3 to 4 of the committee members on each different subcommittee. And so I think that we should just take volunteers to be on this particular committee. We'll have more subcommittees come up that we'll discuss after this one, but if we have anybody, would you agree to that? Just take volunteers for this particular subcommittee. If there's 2 to 3 others that would be like to be a part of that.
I'll volunteer for it.
Okay, Captain? Need at least one more.
I have a question. So we're looking at 3 or 4 subcommittees?
No, 3 or 4 different members in.
Right, but how many total subcommittees?
So we'll, that's still open for discussion at this point.
I'm just thinking there should be one like for search related data, one for stop related data, and one for the miscellaneous data, which is, did I know the race, ethnicity, prior stop, location of the stop, that type of thing, cause they kinda hang together, the search stuff. Because when you get to the contraband, you know, the contraband has to add up to the total number of searches, and so kind of, I don't know, this is my thought. Is to me, way I see the data structure is there's 3 core areas. Stop data, which is the citation, all that kind of stuff, and then the miscellaneous stuff and the search stuff.
So perhaps we should come up with our, how many different committees do we want before we start filling in those subcommittees? And so, yeah, I'll open that up to the committee on how many different committees we want and what those different committees are going to investigate and look into.
I would suggest 3. One for basic time, location, and the outcome of the enforcement actions for the traffic stop. One for searches and evidence, searches and contraband rather. And then the last one for anything else that doesn't fall into those categories. I don't know what that would be. I already said I don't like other. I didn't use that word though.
Well,
Miscellaneous.
Dr. Fritz called it miscellaneous.
Yeah.
It's the academic other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, you know, if you look at the stop, that committee could include the definition of what constitutes a stop, when's it reportable, what's the location, all of that. I think you can segregate some of that. And then if you look at the searching, consent, contraband, evidence of a crime, you know, if that were the focus of the other committee, and then the miscellaneous could be race and ethnicity or
No race, ethnicity prior to stop.
yes, yeah,
I think gender is collected.
I'll make the motion that we have the three committees, the way he explained it. One for the stop data, one for the search and contraband data, and one for the miscellaneous, which is the other items that need to be collected, gender, that kind of stuff.
So we have a motion to make 3 committees, one for the stop data, which includes the time, location, outcome of the enforcement, one for the searches and contraband, or consent search, and then one for anything else that's out there. We won't say one for anything else that's out there, including race, ethnicity, gender, etc.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Very good. All right, so we have our 3 different committees. The one that you came up with is obviously gonna be our searches and contraband and consent. We have our stop data, including time, location, outcome of enforcement, and anything else, race, ethnicity, gender, etc. So again, we'll get back to the searches and contraband and consent. Julia, you'll be on that committee, and do we have any other volunteers for that? 2 to 3 other members. And everybody's gonna be on one, just so you know, so, and you're gonna be on.
The chair has the ability to appoint you to a subcommittee.
Everybody's gonna be on a subcommittee.
Pick the one you want, cause
No, we got the captain and Julia and at least one more.
I'm happy to do whichever. I mean, I'll do whatever.
All right.
That one's you and me.
Dr. Fritsch. So that'll be our first committee. The second committee is the stop data, including time, location, and outcome of enforcement. Who would like to be on that committee? Captain? Chief? Very good. Chief? You collecting all this, Dan?
I am.
Very good. And then we'll add to this once we get at least 3 on each committee. And then this is anything else including race, ethnicity, gender, etc. Sergeant?
Yep.
Okay. Doctor? Anything else? Sheriff? Very good. Who are we missing? I think that's everybody, isn't it?
Who's not here?
Yeah, just chief.
Chief is gonna be on the stop data. And then I will be on the anything else committee as well.
So let me run that back just to make sure we're clear on the stop. We have Captain over there, Chief over there, Chief Rodriguez, and was there a 4th one or just the 3 on that one?
I think it was just the 3.
It was on the stop data.
Okay, there we go. All right, and then on the search, Julia, Captain, and Doctor. And then on the miscellaneous, not other, we have Sergeant Rivera, Dr. Cummins, Sheriff Curd, and Chief Anderson. Okay. And just from a logistical point of view, how we have done these in the past is we'll communicate with that direct group, and usually it's easiest to set up a Teams link where we can discuss those at a time convenient to everybody, to discuss the matters of the subcommittee, get anything back to staff that's needed, preparation of the agenda for the next meeting, and then prepare to have all those reported on in full at the next meeting.
Very good. Is there any other discussion on agenda item number 3, which is discuss and take action on matters related to motor vehicle stop data? With none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4 is discuss and take action on future advisory committee meeting dates and location, including video conferencing. We did discuss this just briefly earlier. I would like to make the recommendation that we do hold all meetings here in this building in the main TCOL training room. And that presence is strongly encouraged to be in person. However, if you cannot for whatever personal reasons, then we will have Zoom capabilities set up for you to sit in on it. So that's my recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Very good. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay. Very good. So we will have all of our meetings here in this building with Zoom capabilities. So the next item that we have is we need to discuss the I don't know that we wanna go, do we wanna go further out than just our next meeting or have tentative dates between now and then? I don't, or do we wanna
Well,
just
it-
go to our next meeting?
The further we have 2, or we will have 2 advisory committees going at the same time. So we're kind of restricted on space if we wanna get in there. And so the further you could go out, the easier it is to deconflict things. We'll do it either way, but and I think to some extent it helps get it on people's calendars. So if we could go out 2 meetings, you know, that would kind of help some things on our end. We can make sure that staff's available and be a little more predictable. If all you're comfortable doing is going out to the next meeting, that's certainly acceptable, but the more we can plan for it, the more we can have staff and resources in place to support it. And we can schedule other things around it.
I think as the months move along, once you already have it in your calendar, it will be easier to maneuver around that. So I like the idea of doing it once a month until May. And 1 month from today would be February 3rd. And I'd like to make the recommendation, just do it the first Tuesday of the month until we get through May.
Is it possible, I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Okay.
one class, but till 11.
Um,
I can do remote though. It's not a problem. You're good with it.
I have no problem with
It's
that.
just my face-to-face class.
I'm open to other dates as well. I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't think anybody wants to come on a Friday. Mondays are busy.
What's wrong with Wednesdays? How about just doing
Wednesday
Wednesdays?
would be fine. Is anybody opposed to Wednesdays?
Wednesday is better for me than Tuesday.
Tuesdays works out better for me.
So first Wednesday of each month?
I will not be able to attend the first one, but it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, that'd be fine.
No, it's I think it's been,
April's GPCA conference, the first Wednesday.
we do have an all staff.
So we're looking at February 4th.
If
March 4th.
would there be an objection to March 11? The reason I'm saying is that we have an all-staff TCO-wide meeting in here
March 11th.
on the 4th on the schedule.
March or February?
March 4th.
after the.
So February 4th, March 11th.
February 4th, March 11th,
Okay.
April 1st.
April 1st is TPCA conference.
We do
It
this.
all goes to that.
Can we do the
Yeah.
second?
I'll be at that.
We generally teach at that too,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
maybe that.
To do it the eighth?
April 8th.
Yeah.
And then our last meeting will be May 6th. I think 1:30 is good if there's no objections to that. Gives people time to drive in and back home afterwards, if you choose. That was a recommendation if anybody wants to make a motion on February 4th, March 11th, April 8th, and May 6th at 1:30.
I'll motion for those dates.
Okay.
Second.
In a second, okay. All in favor of those dates for our next few meetings?
Aye.
And those opposed? Very good. So those are the next dates that we have. Each one of those will be in this meeting. Your different committees that you have, if you would just get with your different committee after we complete our meeting today, and you can come up with, is that okay?
Yes, but if we could get someone to volunteer for each chair.
Okay.
of the subcommittee.
Chair of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Alright. So how about that? How about we have a volunteer to chair the stop data information? Captain? And the searches and contraband consent. Julia, you came up with it, right?
Yes,
Right,
I was
yeah.
gonna like it.
And then the anything else, including race, ethnicity, gender, et cetera. I'm chairing this whole thing, so I'm not doing it. Melissa knew it.
Alright.
Alright,
And we could send out an email after this start an email with the separate groups to kind of work on schedule teams and get that coordinated, send out a link, so we'll get something fired out.
alright, do we have any more discussion or action that needs to be taken on future advisory committee meetings, dates, and location, including video conferencing?
Just so I understand, because I did my Texas Open Meeting Act training yesterday, the quorum is 6, is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So we can get the more, okay, gotcha. Make sure.
Everybody has successfully turned in their certificates, they completed their training, so good job for everybody.
That was enlightening. Thank you. Okay, with nothing else on agenda item number 4, agenda item number 5 is to receive public comment on any topic without action. Do you have one? Oh, very good.
Chair calls Luis Soberano.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to see the work of this committee starting. My name is Luis Soberon. I'm a senior policy advisor with an organization called Texas 2036. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit research and advocacy group. I've been working on TCOL-related issues since late 2021, I believe. So I'm familiar with some of the folks here, and I think you're in very capable hands with them. We released a report back in 2022 that we called the Texas Law Enforcement Data Landscape. It was a 5-part report. One of them was about motor vehicle stop data. Be more than happy to share that information with you all. Might be a little bit dated. But one thing that I did want to flag for your consideration as well as we're talking about data validation is thinking about things that are logically impossible. And what I mean by that is, as an example, there's I'm not going to name names, West Texas Sheriff's Office that reported about 2,700 stops in their 2024 report. Of those, they reported that 2,700 had physical injury or physical force resulting bodily injury. That is, if not literally impossible, highly improbable, and it's likely that someone just put the wrong number in the wrong cell on a spreadsheet. But it would be, I think, worthwhile to explore validation techniques that catch either outright logical impossibilities or high improbability things like that. So that's all I have. I've got cards and I'd be happy to chat a little bit afterwards, but thank you for the work.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? That's all.
No other cards.
Yeah, I encourage you just to meet briefly with your subcommittee once we finish this meeting here, and with that, be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a second. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for coming. Be good to get to know you also. You're very good.
We have to vote on that motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry?
We have to vote on that motion.
Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah,
They're voting with their feet.
all in favor of
It's
adjourning, say
unanimous.
aye. Aye. All opposed? Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you.